Tennessee Tuesday Talks, live from my living room here in Nashville, Tennessee. And we are really excited. Every week we have such great programming. And so today we have a special guest, which I'm going to introduce in a minute. Just wanted to let you know a few things beforehand. So every Tuesday at 12:30, we have wonderful programming for you. And also, please note that we also on Thursdays have a Thursday concert live just for you every Thursday at 12:30 as well. If you want to get on the mailing list, please email me at carrie@nashvillejcc.org. That's CARRIE at nashvillejcc.org. And I will put you on the mailing list right into your email to remind you every week of Tuesdays and Thursdays concerts and talks. So please know that. And also for those who are listening today, we love this to be an interactive conversation. So feel free to ask any questions at any time or make comments in the chat box on YouTube, and we will get them, and then we can our speaker can address your questions or comments. So please do so, because we definitely would encourage interaction. We're live now, and for those of you who might come in late and want to see the whole thing, will always be up on the Gordon JCC YouTube channel, which I was informed today is YOU, not you. I actually knew that about a few weeks ago when my son told me that, but apparently old school. This is Old School Tuesday Talks with Carrie today, although Alex Heller will also be as our co-host as well. Okay, that being said, I'm going to introduce today's topic, our speaker and our topic. And so Paula Daigle. Oh, I did pronounce it right, Paula? Okay, just want to make sure. At the Nashville, she is from the Nashville Council Aging on Aging. That's what it says. At the Nashville Council Aging on Aging. Is that correct, Paula?
It's the Council on Aging.
Yeah, Nashville Council, and then it says Aging on Aging on my paper. So here we go. This is how we stand. This is how it's going to go. Just okay. COA resources. Oh, wait. Let me start all over and see if I can read. I think this is okay. I'm not going to get into any politics, but okay. Paula Daigle at the Nashville Council Aging. I don't know what is going on here with this. Okay, resource with a particular. I'm just going to skip over to where it makes sense to me what is on this piece of paper, with a particular emphasis on the Empowering Grandparents Guide. What does that sentence mean? I don't even know okay. With over 14 years experience in working with older adults and caregivers, Paula Daigle advocates for positive aging for all older adults. She serves COA as the program's manager, working with community agencies and volunteers to improve the lives of older adults in the Middle Tennessee area through advocacy and community engagement. Outside of COA, she enjoys spending time with her family, reading, and traveling. So I'm excited to turn the program over to Paula, and she's gonna speak about what she does, who she is, and of course we're gonna get to grandparenting, because I know a lot of you here today want to hear whatever she's gonna tell us about grandparenting, and especially in today's crisis, what that can look like and how people can manage. And so take it away, Paula, and I will be interjecting with questions myself or others. So take it away, Paula.
Thank you, Carrie. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for having me this afternoon. I wish we could be meeting in person. Hopefully, maybe in the future we can. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Council on Aging of Middle Tennessee. That's our new name, but we're based here in Nashville, but we are a local nonprofit who promotes active and healthy aging for older adults. We were started in 1985 from a commission of the mayor's office of Mayor Richard Fulton to focus on primarily older adults. How can we help older adults in our community? Someone that some of you may be real familiar with, Elizabeth Jacobs, was who founded COA, and we're very proud to carry on the tradition that she created. In today's society, we are often found that people forget about older adults. They are forgotten about, or everybody just assumes they're not valuable, and we think they are wrong. We have had great interactions with older adults out in the community. It's one of my favorite things to do right now. Sadly, we cannot do that. But in the short run, to tell you a little bit about the Council on Aging, something you may know about us most importantly is our directory of services for seniors. What we do is we have been compiling this for several years. It started as a program at Fisk University in the graduate school, but it is a very complete, impartial guide to services in the 14 counties of kind of northern middle Tennessee. And it is the go-to, as the social workers tell us. It has everything from activities, housing, insurance questions, anything like that that an older adult, a family member, caregivers, professionals might need. It's available free. And since we can't go to the public library very much now with COVID, we are mailing those. So I'll give you some information at the end if you would like us to send you a copy of the book in the short run. We also do a lot of education in the community. And some other topics we talk about and some resource guides that we have are our preparing and planning, which is a topic most of us don't want to talk about, but it's a great way to leave a gift to your family, to talk about how you want the final chapter of your life, the end of your life to look. And that's another resource guide we have available that is available to the community. Additionally, if you're caring for someone, Aging and Caring is a great guidebook, a step-by-step. This might be great for your adult children or even for yourself if you're caring for a spouse or a family member. It's a great guide and a step-by-step as you begin to the caregiving journey, what that looks like, what that could be, some items to think about ahead of time. That's another book that we have available. And all of these are available online on our website, but we also do have hard copies if someone would want a hard copy to work with. We also produce information on scams. We do a scam of the month that goes out. We are researching the scams. If you're interested in that, I can provide that information as well. It is very private. We don't sell your email, but we research, we talk to the local police, the local community leaders, government agencies to find out what scams, because sadly our older adults are most often the targets. We're often older adults are at home alone and they're answering the phone. And of course, they were probably raised to not be rude to people on the phone and hang up on them or not open the door. So of course, we want them to be careful in this time. So it's a great brochure with information, but also our scam of the month keeps you aware of what's most common right now in the community. And we also have been really working during COVID to make sure our older adults have information that they need. And there's been scams that have popped up specifically to older adults when there was confusion over the last stimulus payment, if you didn't file taxes, about mailing checks and people getting bank information. So those are important items that are facing older adults right now that we want you to be aware of, to really be extra cautious if someone's calling you wanting information or is trying to get you to give bank account information or personal information. That is not, should not be asked over the phone. You should not be giving it over the phone. It is okay to hang up and call your bank or your credit card account if you feel like they are getting that. We had a call at our office about a gentleman who there's one going around saying that they need to give your social security number in order to get your new social security card. That will not be asked of you over the phone. So we really have been trying to promote to older adults to really take a step back and think about before you give that information. And when in doubt, hang up and call either your bank or you can call our helpline, which I'll give you at the end. We are available to help. Speaking of our helpline, we offer information and referral free to older adults, caregivers, friends of older adults. Through our office, we are all working remotely right now, but we're returning calls and answering calls and helping you as we navigate the new climate with COVID. But any questions you have, anything about older adults, anything from insurance to housing or getting care in your home, we do not provide those services, but we can guide you on the path of where to look, what questions to ask, and maybe who to call. So we are available for that and feel free. Would love for you if you need that service to give us a call, at this time. We normally would advise you to advise walk-ins at our office, but again, we are working remotely. So we are doing everything we can to help older adults through phone calls, emails, Zoom meetings, if we can, get into some of the groups. Some of the senior centers are doing some drive-through events where older adults are driving through and they're giving out materials or waving at them. So that's a safe way for older adults to get out. So a little bit more, Carrie, am I doing good?
You are doing great. And I'll come back with some questions of all of these references you've made in a little while. But yeah, just keep going and get to the grandparenting, because I know
that's where I'm at. That's next.
Okay. And then we will start discussing as you know, as the conversation unfolds. So go for it.
Okay, great. Well, another issue, the Council on Aging has a great group of volunteers and professionals that meet to look at issues facing older adults. And in 2014, we were noticing through some of our volunteers about grandparents raising grandchildren. We were seeing a new trend, and we thought maybe we need to look at this and to see how can we help older adults in this situation? Because grandparents want to be able to be part of their grandchildren's lives, but it is not necessarily raising them on a day-to-day basis. The last statistic I have is 1 in 7 children in Tennessee is being raised by a grandparent. And that could be due.
Can I interrupt you at this moment?
Yes.
Just while it's on my mind. Would you define what you consider raising them? Because that can mean a lot of things. That can mean watching them while the parents work, to actually the child is living in their home.
There's different things. What we are talking about is the child is living with the grandparent on a permanent basis.
Okay.
Without the parents involved. Maybe not, they may be involved, but they're not custodial, or the parents could be gone. As we were researching this, we had lots of different things. There was grandparents who, due to incarceration, drugs, sickness, were getting full custody of the grandchildren. There was also at a time where we were noticing special needs children were being dumped on the grandparents, and the parents were saying, we're done. We are seeing great grandparents raising grandchildren because of lack of parents. The parents either cannot physically or emotionally care for the children. So the grandparents are actually 24/7 raising these grandchildren, which is not exactly how many grandparents expected to live, to be at the end of their lives. They wanted the grandchildren to spoil, and they were looking at their retirement possibly as traveling and doing the things they wanted. And then here is the grandchildren that need a place to stay. And it's kind of an emotional journey. As we were studying this, it was very interesting. We had 2 grandparent caregivers come and speak to us. One was from a higher economic zone than the other, different genders, but they sat down for an hour after the meeting and just talked and just shared with one another the journey and the challenges that they faced, but the rewards to them of knowing that they were caring, that the children were safe and the children were loved. So it was for us, it was a very challenging thing. It was a lot to learn in terms of some of the children's agencies and what the children were facing, and nobody was thinking about the grandparent and the grandparents. So what we wanted to do at the Council on Aging was really focus on the grandparents. What could we do as a community to help those grandparents? Because it is a very challenging situation. Pre-COVID, I can only imagine now, but pre-COVID, even just the thought of technology and the way school is taught differently now, all those things for grandparents that were really a challenge to come up with. So we have created a book, and it's called Empowering Grandparents, A Guide to Raising Grandchildren. And what we hope to do with this book is to make sure that we are trying to hit the highlights, to give as much information as we could for the grandparents as they begin this journey. Sometimes one grandparent that spoke with us began the journey when her husband was alive, and then her husband passed away, and it was just her now with the children, and the challenges of going from 2 caregivers to 1. There's a lot of legal implications. Sometimes it may involve going through the court system, which grandparents need some kind of documents because the doctors in the school aren't allowed to talk to them if they are not the custodians, the guardians, or the parents of the children. So through our guide, what we did is we at first identified what are the top 10 things, the first 10 things, a grandparent would need to know about this process, what to get started, how to get started. Do I have to go to court? Do I not have to go to court? What if the parents are fighting me, or what if it's a bad situation? We had a grandmother call us. She was in her early 60s, still working, and they called her from Memphis and said, you need to be here by 5 o'clock or these children will go into state custody. So she had to leave work, go get the grandchildren, and bring them to live with her, which was not anywhere near her plan. She was still working, wasn't living in a situation where there was room for the grandchildren, but she told us, she goes, I knew that's what I needed to do. I needed to go get those children and I needed to care for them. And the challenges of the disrupting the older adult's life can also be part of it. The emotions of it. This is not how you were expecting to live out your retirement. You weren't planning on this. Your disappointment maybe that your children are not capable of this, and now you're having to do it. So it's a very emotional roller coaster for the older adult, as well as the children who may feel guilty because they want to be with the grandparents because they know they're safe, but they feel bad because of that they're leaving their parents. So there's a lot of emotions, as well as just the legalities of getting the custody, working with the school, trying to figure out schools, and kind of for the older adults, like I said, just not living the life they were expecting, and noticing their social life, their friends may move on and be still doing the fun things, playing bridge every day or going out to dinner or traveling, that they can't do necessarily anymore because they are now raising grandchildren.
And the energy that it takes to be around younger children. I mean, it's fine when they're for a visit, but it's like
exactly. You feed them cookies and send them home.
After you raise children, I mean, then you really know what it is to raise children. So it's kind of like the natural progression is like, oh, yay, they're grown up now. I love them. Yay, they're grown up. And start all
exactly.
over. And it's like, really, it's almost traumatic in some way. And I could understand how emotional on both ends I would imagine there would have to be some kind of therapy to really help both sides, the children, and to even understand their situation and to be able to cope with it emotionally. And then even older adults, I mean, physically, you start having, I'm not sure this is one of my questions, actually, going back to when you just talk in the beginning, even just about what you do as a service.
Sure.
What do you consider an older adult? Like, what are you talking about in an age?
We usually talk 60 plus. 60 plus is usually what we consider an older adult.
Oh, okay. So that's helpful to even understand.
Yes.
Some people are just older and they're in their 40s. And some people in their 60s are really young, but I just wanted to get that.
I know some people in their 80s that are very young.
Yeah, exactly. But so I just wanted to, what you guys consider, not you guys, your agency. I'm from Brooklyn. Yeah. You guys, what do you
figured.
Yeah. So anyway, so keep going. I was just kind of, as you're speaking, I was just like thinking, oh my God, that is such a trauma-based type of situation, especially in the physicalness of raising young children. And then there are times, I guess, which is really probably much rarer, but if both young parents might die in a car accident or illness or suicide, there's so many things that people do go through in a family, unfortunately, and the children are left, with the parent. There are situations that financial disaster that all of a sudden just happen, unexpected things, especially health, cancer, things like that. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago in our community, both parents died of cancer within a few years of each other, and and the children were still in high school. That's still children, and so things like that do happen, where it's not just you think of, drugs or imprisonment, which is horrible in itself for a family, but there are many other ways that a child can become, part of the grandparent's life.
Exactly. And so much about childcare has changed. Just even the years, my oldest child is 23, and the way you put the infants in the bed and the way you wrap them to sleep is very different. So for the grandparents, it's almost relearning. And so in our guide, we talk about vaccinations because a lot of that's different, that in terms of what vaccines even are available now, or how to care for a young child with, with special needs, or just even what food you give them nowadays, much less than when you get to a little bit older and the children are in school. And of course, as a grandparent, you want to be involved, but in a lot of times it might be difficult to go like to the PTA meetings or be the room mother because everyone might be so much younger than you are and not necessarily feeling that. Up in Robertson County in Springfield, a principal recognized that he was seeing so many grandparents. So he did a support group of the grandparents. They would meet after drop off for breakfast just to be able to share with one another. For those folks in Davidson County, there is a program run by Family and Children's Services called the Relative Caregiver Program. And it's a phenomenal program where they offer support for the grandparents as well as activities for the kids so that the grandparents can maybe have some time away. And there's just kind of a support group, a way to support one another. They are seeing an increase in cases due to COVID of grandparents maybe not wanting to get out or come to things. So of course, they're trying to go virtual. But it's that support, it's that understanding from their friends, because a lot of times older adults in this situation might be embarrassed that they're raising their grandchildren, or they don't want people to know, or they feel like they can't do things. So we really want to encourage other older adults to support the older adults in the position of raising their grandchildren. Include them in things, check up on them. Granted, we can't meet in person now, but give them a phone call. Stop by and do a visit with them on the porch to give them a break, just so they're not feeling that they're not losing their sense of community by having to raise these grandchildren, because they're doing it because they love them and want these grandchildren to have a great life. And so it's kind of we're hoping to see, more multi-generational activities in the community so these grandparents could go, to events and bring the kids, and as well as get some interaction for themselves with their peers, which is what we all love. I mean, we all want to be around people and go to things and see our friends, whether it's in our faith community or in our neighborhood or at the public library. Those are really important parts of this for the grandparents. And working with the schools. I know during COVID, I have a 16-year-old, and he came down looking for help one day with math. And I knew I couldn't help him. So I can only imagine a grandparent feeling that, not being able to help the children with their homework, or understanding what's happening in the schools with the way school is done. And now with COVID, I think it's enhanced because we're all home and we're trying to learn technology. Some of us are better at it than others. The kids usually are better than us, but that's not always the case. And so that's another challenge. And another form of isolation for these grandparents raising grandchildren is now they are with you 24/7. And we really encourage the grandparents to take care of themselves, because we all know, we've heard from the Meals on Wheels, if they're delivering meals and there's children in the home, they know that older adult most likely may not eat because they're going to give the food to the children. But we really need to make our older adults understand they need to take care of themselves, because they need to be healthy and well to take care of the children. So it's a hard thing, and it's a challenging situation for the children, for the older adults, for the parents maybe that come in and out of the lives of the children. Technology is huge. There's a lot of apps and things grandparents didn't know. So we even if you're just babysitting your grandchildren on a regular basis, maybe after school or because your children are at work, in the book, we have some great pages that explain some of the apps that the kids might use, like Snapchat and Instagram, and things that all the kids are using. It kind of explains them. So we have that in the book. So even if you're just doing a grandparenting on the weekend or babysitting and not a full-time role, it would be very helpful, I think, some information in this book to know about some of the things that are out there in terms of technology or just changes in the way schools are operated, just so you just for your information, but also if you're babysitting, it's a good way to know as well.
Well, I'm thinking okay, moving a little bit away from the full-time grandparent, where it's like they have, I don't want to say everybody always has a choice to a certain degree, but the parent, not the situation where the kids are full-time living, but right now, for example, and I see it all around me. I mean, oh my gosh, a lot of working parents with their children at home are really struggling to be able to work and, be able to handle their child's education at the same time, the kids who are not going back to school. And so I would imagine, your first instinct, I think, as a parent would be like to your parents, can you help with the kids? Because I need to work. But now with COVID, like, you don't want your children to be exposed, you expose your older adult to the younger children, because now there's a possibility, unless you've really lived in a bubble, that you feel safe to expose different age groups to each other, because a lot of the seniors are really staying separate so they can, conserve their health. So it's really so much complicated now, because parents really need the help of the grandparents, and grandparents who would actually lovingly and be happy to do it in a under normal circumstances now are like, it becomes like, am I going to get COVID? Am I going to expose myself to this? And so it's so complicated and stressful. Like, everybody has all these different stress levels going, like, I feel like 24/7 now, especially when there's young children involved, or any children that need to be taken care of properly, and parents who have to work. So the role of grandparenting during this time is also is interrupted on such a large level, because older people have to be concerned about their health, especially in their 60s, because that's the age group that's the most vulnerable, 60s and up. So, what
it's a tough one. I mean, it's a tough one. And it's really, I think it goes down to each family's comfort level. We're seeing a lot of older adults. I'm seeing them in the grocery stores. They're like, I want to live my life. It doesn't matter to me. I'm doing what I want. So I think it's to find a balance between not letting them see the grandchildren at all versus having them. We're seeing a lot of encouraging people, even if it's to do like a front porch visit or sit in the grass, to at least visit with the grandparents so that you're seeing them. If you live in the same town. Technology, of course, such as Zoom, or if you're out of town, is a great way to connect. But to try to do that. And in terms of the grandparents helping them, I think it's just really difficult to figure out for each family what is best for them. It's a hard one. I struggle with it myself. My parents don't live here, but if they did, what that interaction would look like, what that could be. But I think it's a problem we're all going to need to look at as the potential for schools to stay online grows, and there's more organizations telling people to go back to work, or even to work from home, and you need to have quiet. And it's very hard to make children, smaller children, not understand that you need to be on the call. So it's a challenge. I really feel like I hope families are talking about it and evaluating the risks based on their own families, and to not be afraid to talk about it, and to not be afraid to hurt their older adults' feelings, or for the older adults to set their own preference level of risk of what they're willing to do to see their grandchildren. And I had a friend who quarantined for a month before a new baby was born so that she could help care for it. So I think it just depends on the individual's level of what they're willing to do. But I definitely think families need to discuss it and kind of share your feelings and your fears with one another.
Do we have any questions coming in at this point on YouTube? Because I wouldn't see them. I'd have to, anything coming in, I'm asking our behind the scenes technical wizards. No. So there's no questions as of now, but I just want to put that out there. If anybody has any questions for any resources that, you might want to learn about, please, from all the things that your organization does, not just today talking about grandparenting, but it really, any of the resources that that you might need out there, please feel free to send in a question. Something you spoke about earlier, I'm going to jump back and forth maybe.
Sure.
Parenting, since there's no questions right now. Preparing and planning is like a really big deal. And I I've been a single mom for like 17 years or something. And, right at the divorce, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to really look at this, and I was younger at that point. And then I revisited it as my son, now he's past 18. And so that even had to change because I had somebody else I needed to think about who could be in charge of my son,
Right.
from my end of things, not speaking about my ex-husband, but from my end of things. And then as my son now is in his early 20s, I needed to revisit that as well. So it's always good to always look at those papers and have them in place. I mean, because especially with COVID, I mean, it's horrible to
Right.
say, nobody knows how they're going to react if they, God forbid they get it, that's going to look like. And I know for me, when I put my papers in order, it was like a relief, like knowing that God forbid something happens before I'm ready to go, but God forbid I do. Like I knew that it was very easy. Everything was put in place. So to make, leaving everything behind much easier for my son to have to deal with.
It's
So,
truly a gift. It's almost like a gift for him he doesn't have to worry about that. He knows your wishes because it's such an emotional time when one of our family members passes away. And so it's like one less thing that like they can come to terms with their emotions and not have to worry about, oh, what did mom want? What was she thinking? Everything's in place and that you're not running on an emotions, making decisions about end of life, that the older adult or the family members made their decisions known, they've written them down. It's just very important to have that. And it's a hard conversation because no one wants to think about passing away or their mother passing away. Every time I talk to my mother, she starts to tear up about it. But it's very important because you want to know, I want to know, what are your wishes? What would you like to see, towards the end of life? How do you want us to care for you? So I think it's a hard conversation, but it's also a gift to your children and grandchildren that at least that part of this will be done for them.
this is reminding me of a really funny story. So my mom's from Brooklyn, and I was born in Brooklyn. So my mom lived in Brooklyn really until she passed away, and she passed away young. 69 is young.
Oh, that's very young.
Yeah, but so every time I go to Brooklyn, for some reason I don't know why my mom did this, but she would not like. I learned, I guess because of you learn what your parents don't do, so you do that maybe. But I'd go visit my mom, and she had some jewelry, like valuable jewelry she inherited from my grandmother. And, eventually would become mine or my siblings or whatever. And so I go to visit her in Brooklyn. She goes, okay, I hid the diamonds in the Venetian blinds. And I'd be like, what? And then the next time I come, she goes, I moved them. They're in the popcorn, in the jar with the pop. I'm like, what? And I was like, I mean, seriously, this is how I grew up. And I was like, that's kind of crazy, and I remember stories growing up that and this is like people born in the Depression or
Right.
My mother grew up during the Depression, and my great grandmother, and my mom would tell stories like, oh, Aunt so-and-so used to put all her money under the mattress. I guess that's was a very popular thing to do then, is put things under the mattress, and then she told when one family died, all this money was in the mattress. I mean, they actually did that,
Yeah.
And so I, learned from this to insure valuable things and to put them in like safety deposit boxes, so my son doesn't have to, I die and then somebody, not my son, he has no idea that there's a diamond ring in the blinds or in the popcorn jar. So when you were talking about preparing and planning, I mean, I can't believe I actually grew up with this. And my mom.
I think that was common. I think that was probably really common.
Yeah. So preparing and planning, and this is really kind of like talking about what people don't want to talk about. Let's talk about it. So basically, I'm thinking when you're talking about preparing and planning, because I did these papers, and I'm hoping that our listeners have done this, is if you do get sick, your medical wishes, what's that paper called? It's a certain kind of document.
It's a medical power of attorney.
Yeah. So my son knows my wishes, and especially with COVID, people are getting, I always forget the word. It's
intubated.
I want to say incubated, but incubated. Okay. I did go to college for a few years, but it was design school. So I think I missed a lot of words and subjects, but I can talk about art history. Anyway, but seriously, I mean, God forbid that should happen. And that can happen so quickly with this
Exactly.
disease. I mean, in 2 weeks, you can go from, oh, I'm fine, I went to the grocery store, to you're in the emergency room and they're intubating you.
Intubating.
You. Yeah, which is horrible thought, but which, quite honestly, which is one of
Right.
the reasons I'm wearing my mask every day, is that scenario seems like a nightmare, but that is happening all around us every day. Thousands now, countless. Now it's becoming like the numbers just keep going up. It's happening. And really to have those papers, in place for the
so important.
situation. And it's easy to do there. And so you give, what do you give out people, like lawyers? Like, how do you help people in that area?
We have our booklet called the Preparing and Planning Booklet. And in the back of it are the forms they're Tennessee specific, but most states recognize other states. But we've got the advanced directive for healthcare in the back here. Just things you need, the appointment of a healthcare agent, so in case you can't make your decisions for yourself. And it tells you there are online forms you can go to that the state of Tennessee has that have the forms for wills. You don't necessarily have to go to a lawyer. I think if you have a kind of a larger estate or some complicated things, I would definitely encourage you to go to a lawyer. But if you have simple things, you could probably just write out the form on the state of Tennessee, have it notarized. Your banks provide that free. We had these papers done for my daughter before she went to college 2 weeks ago, and the bank here in Bellevue they came outside and notarized for her in the car. She never had to get out of the car. They had
great.
So there are forms you can get online. So if your estate is simple, then I would definitely encourage you. You don't necessarily need a lawyer, but if you have a complicated estate or any kind of special needs children you need to prepare for, I would encourage you to go to a lawyer and make sure you have the right kind of papers. But in terms of the healthcare power of attorney or appointing someone, there are forms on the state of Tennessee. There's a group called Honoring Choices Tennessee. It's a nonprofit that's all they do, that they are encouraging people to have these papers in place so that when the time comes, it's all there. Because even pre-COVID, just a car accident even, or just any kind of, a stroke or something you weren't prepared for, it's all done for you and for your family.
So this is like another horrible question.
Sure.
Because it's like, these are let's talk about all the worst case scenarios that could happen, which is basically what I guess you deal with, because it's like,
we do.
I mean, children having to go live with their grandparents, they're lucky they have grandparents who can take them in. So it's not the worst case, but it's still traumatic, I would think, on certain levels.
Exactly. Yes.
Here's let's take it further. What happens if the grandparents, now the children are living with them, and then something happens to the grandparents, which is not so far,
right.
Thinking far,
right.
Disaster thinking that could happen, and it can. Well, now what happens to the children? Then it's a state, or then they start looking for other relatives. Like, what's the next?
My understanding is that they would try to find another family member, and if not, they would go back probably into state custody if the parents weren't in a position to take them back. So that's why it's really important for grandparents and parents to plan and have a line of succession almost. So if something were to happen to the grandparents, is there an uncle or even a family friend or a brother or sister or something to take those kids, because we really want to try to avoid them being in state custody if there is a family member in a safe place for them to be. We really want it, but that would be what would happen. Sad.
Planning gives so much peace of mind.
Yeah, it's really hard to do and you don't want to think about it, but in the long run, it's so beneficial for everyone involved to be able to do that.
Yeah. So if nothing else from this whole conversation, because I mean, I know you're talking about that this does happen a lot, that the children do end up with grandparents, but in most cases, a lot children do not end up with the grandparents, but nevertheless, planning for every possible scenario is really a gift, like you say, and it is
really
peace of mind to all the people who you love and the people around you. So if nothing else from this conversation, I say, to everyone listening who is in their 60s, and even do it before, because it doesn't hurt to have these papers done even before. You never know what can happen at any point. Everybody's in this illusion like, oh, I'm going to live till old age. Well, right now with COVID, nobody's guaranteed anything, but we never were. And everybody is going to pass away. I mean, that's just given. That's life. We're all going to die, And so I think I remember in my 20s, I started doing Kundalini yoga. I did yoga and I still do a bit of a practice, not as much as I used to. But my yoga teacher used to say, imagine yourself on your deathbed right now, looking back on your life. What do you want it to look like? Because don't be afraid to think about death is really what the teacher was kind of the lesson from our yoga teacher. And it really stayed with me my whole life. It's like, first of all, how do I want to live my life? But also not to be afraid of dying, because we all will die. We just don't know when or how. None of us do.
Right.
It's an illusion that we think we're going to grow old. Growing old actually is a blessing, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it when you're like, oh, my hip, my knee, I can't even reach down and get that thing off the floor. What happened to me? But still, it's a blessing.
It is a blessing.
Yeah. And children who actually have grandparents, they are blessed as well, so everything's really a blessing.
Even to encourage your adult children to, as their children are going off to college, to make sure that they have papers for those children, that they can do it. And then for your adult children to have their plans in place. So if something were to happen to them, there was a plan for the children, that it's all planned out and talked about, and it's not a surprise, or we're scrambling when we're all emotionally in an emotional state over illness or death or something, to have to make decisions. And
definitely don't put diamonds in the Venetian blinds or
the popcorn
jars. So please, if anybody's still doing that, stop it now. Take them out, put them in wherever, but put them in someplace safe and let your children know where they are. Okay?
Exactly. Exactly.
Because there might be some people out there still doing that. I swear to God, if my mom was alive still, I feel like she would still be doing that.
I think maybe it goes back to the Depression, and they were afraid of the banks closing, so they're like, we're going to keep it at home. We're going to keep it at home.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my mom, when she did get sick with cancer, she immediately put me in, and thank God she still was able to do that, to get to the bank and I would go with her, and we changed everything over quickly, and she called the lawyer and changed her will. But it's good to have that, not waiting for that moment, because then, like you said, you're dealing with your own illness and all of these things. And so it's more emotional, and it's just a lot to start to have to deal with at that time when you're just trying to even stay well and hope to stay well. So, So, I mean, we're moving right along here. Would you give out some website, say it out loud, and the phone number again? Yeah.
Sure. And our helpline is available, and that's, and we serve the northern middle Tennessee counties. But if you have a friend that's out of the country, out of this Tennessee area, we might be able to tell you, hey, call this agency in that area. But our number is 615-353-4235. That's 615-353-4235. And all of these materials I've mentioned are online on our website. If you feel comfortable going online, is www.coamidtn.org. That's coamidtn.org. So it's like Council on Aging Middle Tennessee.org, kind of abbreviated. But all of our materials are on there. You can send us emails if you have a question that you want us to answer, or if you need help. We are always available to answer questions. If you just want to know, am I thinking this through correctly, or I need help in the home, or my mom needs a ride somewhere, we are available to provide you that information, like to tell you about other agencies, to give you guidance on where to go. And that's for adult children, that's for older adults, that's for caregivers. We get a lot of calls from friends and neighbors of older adults who are worried about their neighbors, which is a great thing to see. And so we can kind of give them some advice of places to call, or maybe some things to talk to the older adult about, to get them in the right mindset to talk about the things that need to be talked about, or if they need some assistance.
That's really great. I mean, I've been working with Alex. She's the adult director, Alex Heller, and I've been assistant to the department for 17 years. And so, I mean, I get personal phone calls. Can you help me find a caregiver? You know, so people actually call me personally because I've been working with older adults for so long in the Jewish Community Board and Jewish Community Center. And it's great to know that I could, you know, we have Jewish Family Service, of course, but it's also great to know that you know, I didn't even realize, quite honestly, today I'm learning a lot. So I'm so glad to be on this conversation so I could direct somebody to your agency as well.
We value Jewish Family Services as one of our very valuable community partners. Pam Kellner is a friend of ours. We all love Pam, and she's part of our leadership council where we gather agencies that work with older adults to kind of learn what each other's doing, talk about needs in the community, and kind of try to work together collaboratively to figure out what we can do for them. So we value you guys, and you guys have been very innovative during COVID with some of the technology and some of the support. So we are always giving you guys as suggestions to people to look what they're doing. If you're trying to integrate and kind of help older adults during this time, you guys have been a great partner and a great source of information for older adults.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, so in our chat box from the Gordon JCC, it says, "Thanks for this, Paula!" Exclamation.
Well, you're welcome.
This is really helpful, and I hope that our older adults who's ever watching, because it's not just older adults. I feel like the children, like adult children.
We get a lot of calls from adult children that want to either move their parents here, or the parent is here and they've moved away, and Nashville has changed so much, and they're trying to learn about services or need to get assistance for their parent or their aunt or uncle. So it's really important that we all work together. And like I said, we are here. We're a small but mighty nonprofit, we like to say, but we really value older adults. We think they're integral to our community. They're just fun to be around if you give them a chance. And we're just glad to help any way we can.
Well, this has been great. I feel like, I don't know that we don't have any questions coming in, and I feel like we've kind of spoke, you know, a pretty broad, many topics, but also I feel like we've given our listeners valuable information on where to get started with whatever might be specific to them.
Right.
You know, in regards to just all the things you mentioned, actually, preparing and planning, aging and caring. I love all those books so where can they get these books? Like, they just go to the website and they can order them?
They can. Yep. They can.
Free?
They are free. They are free to older adults and caregivers. Because of COVID and that we're not able to like be out in the community in person, we are mailing them to folks or delivering them. I'm seeing the JCC's answering a question. I'd be glad to deliver some to you guys. But they can call us and I'll be glad to drop some in the mail to them, a copy in the mail to them. Once COVID is over, our directory of services for seniors is available at all public libraries. But now that the libraries are closed, you can't get there. So,
well, this would be really helpful. And I don't know how many copies you can bring to the J, but we deliver lunches to our seniors every Thursday. Not all our seniors, but there are many on our lunch list. And so maybe we could, if they're interested to have or any of these, they can let us know, and we could put that in with their lunch on Thursday. That would them.
I'd be glad to drop as many as you guys need.
Fantastic.
Afterwards, and I'd be glad to schedule a time and drop any of those off. Or if anyone wants one mailed to them, just please call our office or send us an email or go on our website. We would love to send that to you.
This is awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for really a helpful conversation to all of us.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for asking, and hopefully we can do it again, and hopefully in person soon. I'd love to come out when we're all back and visit with everybody.
I just envision everybody coming out at some point when you could take your mask, everybody just hug. Everybody's going to be hugging. Like, I'm not generally a hugger, but I might end up being a hugger after all this, because
I know you just miss. I've missed going out in the community and just been able to just like visit with people and talk to people. It's going to be fun when we can go back out.
So ending on this note, which is totally absurd, and it's like a carryism at this point, because I have my own little like world that I live in that a lot of other people might not. But so I used to design handbags for a living, and I used to go over to Taiwan and work in the factory, not the factory, in the sample room where they would make the samples, and I would sketch, and I would be there all day. And then at lunchtime, and they would have a person come in to assess people's health if they weren't feeling well. And it was actually a reflexologist, right? But the one I'll never forget, this was like life-changing. One of the things that they prescribed to somebody who was having some issues, whatever they were, that they were determined with their issues that they were going through health-wise or mental health-wise, their prescription was to go up to the forest, get barefoot, and hug a tree for 20 minutes, and hug the tree and just stand there barefoot and hugging the tree. So if you can't hug a person, go and hug a tree for now, because apparently it has medicinal value, either emotionally or spiritually or whatever it was. So it just reminded me of that. So maybe I'll go hug a tree later. Just don't get any like ticks on you. But, and that's after you order your pamphlets. So, I actually have enjoyed this conversation. It's brought back fun memories for me, and I feel like really helpful information for other people. And so thank you again. Is there any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
I think my parting words is for all of you older adults out there or your family members, please reach out during this time. There are so many of us that care about you and want to help you, and call a friend today or knock on your neighbor's door and sit apart from one another. But to really reach out and not be isolated. And we do care about you, and take care of yourself. And please let us know how we can help you.
Well, I think you've done that really well today. So thanks again, and we'll be in touch, okay?
All right, have a great day.
Thank you. So to everybody out there, thanks for listening, and remember, Thursday we have concerts, and every Tuesday Talks. And if you missed any of this or you want to have to refer back to it, go to our YouTube channel, Gordon JCC, and you will find this video up for you to re-listen